If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. I don't know if you've heard, but Uncle Sam found $700 billion in between the seat cushions of the White House. Surely you've heard the cacophony of cheers and celebration. The white media has been pre-orgasmic over it. Everyone's been celebrating because there's going to be some serious money flowing out of Washington real soon to put behind climate change and some parts of healthcare, all part of Joe Biden's legislative agenda, which is proceeding apace. Yeah, like his support for the thugs in blue. He's been getting them money and fighting to make sure that the laws back them 100% too. Now, let's not kid ourselves here. This so-called Inflation Reduction Act, whatever the world you want to call it, this isn't anything but an enormous giveaway to certain politically connected, politically interested parties. As an example of how this kind of legislation works, Elon Musk, you'll recall, is one of the world's richest men, precisely because of government policy regarding electric cars, solar panels, etc. He positions himself so that he can catch the windfall from those government-regulated industries and the huge amounts of money the federal government puts into them. The government made it a point to make sure that people got big tax incentives to buy electric cars. Elon Musk's fortune was turbocharged by government money, government policy, specifically because of electric and solar, which was done as an environmental initiative, just like this latest bill that Biden's about to sign, which has billions and billions devoted to climate change. This man, Elon Musk, has been successfully sued for racial discrimination against black people. That's what he did with all the billions of dollars that the government gave to him. He used it to discriminate against black people. And he's even being sued now for more of the same. This man who the federal government made rich, and we paid for it out of our black pockets. And of course, Merrick Garland's DOJ isn't doing anything about it any more than Donald Trump's did. Because if you got some white supremacist who's discriminating against black people, well, the government doesn't need to get involved in that. I mean, no civil rights have been violated. This is the same government that tells black people that they don't have any money for us for anything. There's no money for nothing. Well, if we're the ones asking for it. Doesn't matter if it's reparations or money to compensate the victims of the Flint water poisoning genocide. I call it genocide because that's precisely what it was. This latest spending bill by Biden is not a pork barrel, it's an entire pig farm. A lot of people are going to be feeding at this particular trough, but it's already been decided that black people will be left out. And of course, where were the congressional black talkers at while all of this was going on? While all of these hundreds of billions of dollars were sloshing around and somebody trying to figure out who's going to get what. Where were the people who were supposed to be sticking up for black folks at? Well, that's the problem. The congressional black talkers have made it clear that they're not really the voice of black people. This gang of immigrants and professional suck-ups who cynically called themselves the conscience of the Congress since 1971. Oh, they're not the voice of black people in America. They're the conscience of the Congress. Yeah, that's the reason why they stick up for immigrants, illegal migrants. They stick up for everybody else, every other sort of interest group. They stick up for transgender bathrooms, LGBT, this, that, and the third. They stick up for abortion, all the rest of it, anything but black people, because they're the conscience of the Congress. They're not the voice of black America. You know, a conscience is supposed to nag at you, isn't it? It's supposed to bother you. It's supposed to keep you from being able to sleep at night. A conscience isn't supposed to be your rubber stamp yes man nodding its head and agreeing with whatever you say. But that's what the CBC is and what they've always done, especially on this legislation. Compare that, on the other hand, to Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who are using their positions to leverage things for their states. See, when Democrats, even the most powerful ones like Chuck Schumer, go to Joe Manchin, they can't just take him for granted. They have to think first before they approach him. When they go to Joe Manchin, they have to approach him with the thought in their heads, what can we offer this guy to get him to vote our way? That has to be at the front of their minds whenever they deal with this man. Whether you like Joe Manchin or hate him, and he hasn't done a dang thing for black people, so you can guess what my opinion of him is, you have to at least give the devil his due. Manchin is showing what I meant when I told you, if you want to be liked, just say yes to everything that everybody tells you. But if you want to be respected, you better start learning to say no. See, Joe Manchin's not worried about friends. He's worried about getting his and getting what he needs for his state. Too many Negroes are trying to be everybody's buddy. The problem is black folks are a group, and groups don't have friends, groups have interests. That is, unless the people claiming to speak for you have decided to go into business for themselves, and their only interests are looking out for themselves alone. The congressional black talkers are bootlicks. They want government offices for themselves and corporate token jobs for their kids and family members. So, of course, no matter what's on the legislative agenda, they would never do what Manchin did and say nothing that the Dems don't want them to say. They're not going to tell Nancy Pelosi nothing's going to get through the House unless black folks get XYZ. Now, they've got the numbers, and they can certainly organize. When it comes to what the Dems want, the CBC has no problem getting in lockstep, but then again, puppets always move the way their masters want, don't they? This year alone, between the instant billions that Biden found for Ukraine, along with more money to bring Ukrainian refugees to the U.S., and now this enormous amount of pork barrel politics, which will give hundreds of billions of dollars to all kinds of interests except for black people's interests, we see the Democrats showing us that they'll move heaven and earth for everyone, except us. If ever there was a moment to press for black people's interests, it's now. Our problem is that white power used its money and its media to invent a phony black leadership class, which we call the misleadership class. They will not speak up for us, they will not call out their white colleagues for ignoring us, and they won't use their position to leverage anything for us, because these chumps sold out before they even took office. And that is not okay. We have to focus on cleaning house and imposing political consequences and political penalties for those who work against our interest and try to derange our internal politics through misleadership. One has to wonder how many other instant billionaires and mega millionaires will now be created by this latest federal spending bill. How many more Elon Musks are about to come sprouting out of the woodwork because Uncle Sam is going to basically invent them out of whole cloth. Now, let me be clear. I have no problem with Biden's latest grab bag of federal giveaways. My problem is that black people aren't getting any part of it, and we should. The same Biden who said that he would have black people's backs turned his back on us and hasn't given us a second thought. And yet you're going to have some bootlicks, a lot of them coming along telling us, well, this is why we needs the votes. All these other groups get tons of money. They're going to be getting billions of dollars out of this, and they don't have our numbers. They don't have our leverage. They do not have our political cohesion. They don't put anyone into office. It wasn't the Hispanics or the Asians or anybody else who put the Democrats into the majority in the Senate. It was black people in Atlanta, black people in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and in Detroit. There are no battleground states. There are merely battleground cities. Majority black battleground cities. And in many cases, these other groups who the Democrats trip over their shoelaces to make sure that they give money to, they vote against the Democrats. And yet the Democrats bend over backwards to do things for them. Groups that are too small to make a consequential difference, and groups that in many cases vote against the Democrats anyway. So miss me with that, well, if we vote just for this. We will not watch everyone else be given money that ought to be going to us, and then have the black bootlick contingent tell us that we can't get anything unless we turn out to vote. Again, and even then we might get something, but it's much more likely that we won't. This money that Biden and the Democrats are planning to be giving to other people, that money is not going to be given to us. Even if they handed it to us, that's not money being given to us. That's money being given back to us. Money that our ancestors made possible and that we generate through the wealth this racist country prevents us from having and accumulating. So no, I'm not going to be rushing to the polls to vote for anything. The money's supposed to be given to us first. I'm not about to let the Democrats or anyone else bribe me with my own money. We are the swing vote. We turn out and Dems win. If we don't, like in 2016, they'll lose. We make the difference. Us and no one else. The Democrats have had every chance there is to prioritize the people who are solely responsible for putting them in power. If black people had stayed home in 2020, Biden wouldn't be president, Nancy Pelosi wouldn't be speaker, and Chuck Schumer wouldn't be majority leader in the Senate. If black people don't turn out this year, the Democrats will lose Congress. And then they won't be celebrating any spending bills of any sort. But they made their choice. Scare talk about Trump wannabes like DeSantis and Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's not going to be enough. We need incentives. The ballot only gives you the ability to vote for someone. It doesn't let you delete a vote from someone else's tally. And with moves like this one that the Democrats are throwing in our faces, everyone's going to get paid except for us? Well, I don't see a thing to celebrate in that. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Emily, Chaz, Eve, Frederica Moore, and 2 Gigabyte Entertainment. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.